like to call to order the July 24th, 2023 Powhatan County Board of Supervisors meeting. Ms. Carmack, if you would help us with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. McClung, if you would do the invocation, I'd be grateful. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you for this day that we have here in Powhatan. Thank you for this beautiful weather, and keep everybody in check tonight and have a great night. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Are there any requests to postpone agenda items, additions, deletions, or changes in the order of presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cox.
I would like to remove under 11 old business B, water and sewer rate study.
Okay.
That will go to a workshop.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll move that to a workshop at a later date. Can we get a motion for approval of the agenda as amended?
So moved.
And second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. County Administrator updates.
No updates this evening.
All right. Presentations.
Yep. We have tonight Rebecca Worley and Rob Alexander from VDOT to present on the VDOT 288 hard shoulder running project.
All right, good evening. As Brett said, I'm Rebecca Worley, your resident engineer for VDOT's Chesterfield residency. I'll kick off our presentation about the Route 288 hard shoulder running project and then bring up my colleague Rob Alexander to finish the presentation. To provide some background on how this project began, in 2018, a STARS study was completed by VDOT, and this is a strategically targeted, affordable roadway solution study. The goal of these types of studies is really to identify corridors or locations and find safety or congestion management solutions that are more cost effective. In the case of Route 288, obviously there is a peak hour problem with congestion in the AM and PM peak hours, depending on which direction you're traveling for traffic. And rather than wholesale widening of 288, which would be an extremely expensive prospect, one of the suggestions, the recommendations that came out of this study was the concept of using a hard shoulder running, where you use the right shoulder of the existing roadway during peak hour to manage that additional traffic demand during those peak time periods of day. Two projects were recommended, one for northbound 288 from Route 711 to Route 6 in Goochland County, and southbound direction between West Creek Parkway and Route 711. There are a couple other examples of hard shoulder running systems in Virginia already implemented in I-264 in Virginia Beach and I-495 in Northern Virginia, but this would be the first project of its kind in VDOT's Richmond district. So to provide an update on the schedule and the specific project, the Route 288 northbound project is currently funded at a total of $39.5 million. We briefly discussed for reference, but a widening project of the same length would likely be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So it is a significantly less expensive option to address that peak hour congestion time period. Funding sources for this project, the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, CVTA, has contributed regional funds to the project. And then there are also Innovative Transportation Technology Funds, ITTF funds, have been identified since this is a high infrastructure technology project. You'll see it involves a lot of technology infrastructure. It was granted those funds as well. Some major milestones upcoming just for your information. In terms of public involvement, the project team is planning a citizen information meeting, which will occur in early fall 2023. The public hearing is anticipated to take place about a year from now in late summer 2024. Right-of-way acquisition, right-of-way authorization will occur in early winter 2024. Construction advertisement is anticipated in fall 2025, with construction beginning in early spring 2026. That's kind of a highlight. We're very early on in the project development process at this point, but I will now hand it over to Rob Alexander to provide more information about the details of the project.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you very much for inviting us to be here tonight. My job is to try to explain a little bit more about how this will work. What's the technology behind it? What's the concept of the hard shoulder running project? Sorry about that. Just for clarification, the study recommended projects both in the northbound and the southbound direction. We are just talking about the northbound direction tonight. This project is just in the northbound direction. Hard shoulder running is part-time use of the shoulder, of the existing shoulder. And as you can see in this graphic, the traffic on your left is using that part-time shoulder. They're seeing a green arrow over the shoulder when it's available for use. The traffic on the right is not available to use that shoulder because of the red X, and that's the governing traffic control over that shoulder while it's in or not in use. Why do we recommended to do this? Peak hour traffic, as you know, northbound in the mornings, we can cut the travel time between Route 60 and Route 6 in half with this hard shoulder available for use in the morning peak hour. Also, I didn't mention it there, but the number of crashes, 57% of the crashes in this corridor are rear end crashes, generally caused by congestion. So again, anytime we can reduce the congestion, we're increasing the safety of the roadway as well as the throughput. So one of the early questions we get is, can you fit 3 lanes of traffic across that bridge? Well, we didn't have to go far. I took this graphic, this shot off of the James River Bridge in Richmond on I-95, the exact same width of the bridge, the James River Bridge on 288, 39 feet from parapet to parapet. There's 3 lanes of traffic going across the bridge. Now, we would like to have a shoulder. It would obviously be safer, but in this situation for 288, we're only using it during the peak hours, very short periods of time. We feel like it's a good investment to move that additional traffic in those short periods of time. I won't go into great detail with this graphic, but I just wanted, the point is there's lots of technology that goes along with this. There's cameras, there's overhead message signs, there's fiber optics, there's different sensors, lots of technology investment in this corridor, which isn't there today, which is going to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's additional technology that can be used on a day-to-day basis. And all of that technology comes back to our traffic operations center in near Colonial Heights. This is again a 24-hour-a-day operation, joint use with the Virginia State Police. We manage traffic throughout the Richmond region through this operations center, and this will become another key element of what's done at the traffic center. So real quickly, the modes of operation, it's closed. When we say it's closed, that means the hard shoulder is not open for traffic. When it's open, and the red X is there. When it's open, the green arrow comes on and it can be used. Initially, our plan is to do what we call static times of day. So we will look at the traffic numbers and we will say from 6:30 to 8:30 or whatever the right numbers are. Those are going to be the times that it's open. But that can be adjusted. That can change over time as traffic demands change. But the last one is one that our commissioner is very excited about, is the dynamic element of this, that we can change it on the fly as there's traffic incidents, as there's weather, whatever that may trigger the need to use that shoulder. We'll have the ability to make that change, adjust the signs, and do so on the fly, as I said. So we've had stakeholder meetings during the development of this concept. We really wanted the incident and emergency response input. I know that is a tremendous concern for us, is to make sure that we've addressed all of the emergency response interests and concerns with what we're doing. We met with staff from Powhatan County, as well as Goochland State Police, VDOT maintenance, and our traffic operations counterparts. looking at motorist notifications, anything we can about the concept of how this would work. And this is some of the feedback that we got. And we're addressing each one of these elements within the design of this project. We will not be operating in heavy rain or winter weather. The bridge railing was a topic that came up again and again. And we're taking a look at that. We're evaluating the bridge as part of the design of this project. We will reduce the speed limit while the hard shoulder is in operation from 65 to 55. No trucks on the right shoulder. We will also be paving the crossovers on either side of the bridge for a better emergency response to any incident on the bridge. I think this was a very good recommendation, came from one of the emergency response partners, is to place that lane control signal across all lanes. And I put a graphic there, that's from Seattle. And you can see what it would look like having that graphic across all lanes, and traffic would know which lanes are open and which lanes are closed. And then the last one is we want to have some motorist information for traffic entering 288 northbound from Route 711. So there will be a message board of some sort there on 711 approaching 288 northbound. So with that, that's all we had prepared for today. We've got some names here, the project managers. Rebecca, obviously you can reach out to her as well, or myself, but we are here to answer any questions you might have.
Board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
your project completion date, I believe, is in 29.
29, we're starting in 26. 29, Scott.
We need something to look forward to.
I hope it's sooner than 29, sir.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question. I'm hoping to get some good news.
Yeah, I'll try to provide some insight on that. Obviously, the project's just started, as both Rebecca and Rob have said, so we're just in the beginning stages, but commissioners set a goal to advertise the project at the end of calendar year 2025. That probably means we have a construction start date in the spring of 2026. I would expect this to be a 18-month project or so. So you're probably looking at sometime towards the middle, summer of 2028 before we're finished. I would imagine. We're still developing some of those construction schedules though.
Okay. When I'm a member of the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and we were excited to support the TIP amendment that's making this possible.
Right.
To move that forward. I recommended that we do this presentation not only to the county, but to the region, because this is new to our region. You have it in Northern Virginia, you have it in Hampton Roads, but this is something new for us. So I thought it was a good opportunity to share with folks just how far we've come and the good use of these innovative technology funds, as well as the CVTA funds, to do something that's truly, I believe, innovative and exciting for our region. If you go to a Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization meeting in the morning and you get down to the Watkins Center and you're going north on 288, 8:15, expect a state of breakdown. You're going to be going 15 miles an hour. So with the expectation that this is going to change, that we will be able to move traffic going north in the morning during peak hours, is truly exciting. So I just wanted to make sure you guys, VDOT, got the credit for bringing this to Central Virginia. And again, we're supportive and looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Plum.
The use of that travel lane when the light is red, what's to keep people from going over there during that time? Is
So it
there,
is prohibited by code. Then it'll have to be enforced by the Virginia State Police for
Okay.
anybody that violates that.
Those violations would be the same as not obeying the speed limit reduction while it's open and in service during those peak hours.
Yes, sir.
I think that the change on the fly will be a great benefit. And I know that's the modern technology coming into play there and the communication system that you guys have. But if there's ever an emergency, and I'm sure there will be, on the bridge, it enables you to control that traffic and make it be either safer or keep it flowing so that there's not a lot of backup there. I think it'll be a tremendous addition without any doubt. And I do know that having sat on the CBTA, and as Mr. Williams sits on the TPO, and also as vice chairman on the Plan RVA, I think it was instrumental, the way that the deal came together with Smart Scale, VDOT, working in CBTA, and then ITTF with money. And it really is a regional component, which is what Richmond TPO is about, CBTA is about, and Plan RVA. And you guys have done a tremendous job. And I think that, everybody in Powhatan County that travels that corridor in the morning will be excited for the summer of 2028 to get here. But thank you all very much for your time, and thank you for coming out. Thank you. We're going to back up just a moment to county administrator updates. Mr. Chardine has an announcement. And we have so many people here this evening. Wants to get the word out.
Yep, sorry, I did have one thing tonight. We're going to be doing some work on the roof and HVAC of this building. So the August and September meetings, as well as our workshop in those months, will be at the Powhatan Landmark Center, PLC. So we'll put notice of that on our website, and we'll have some signs on the building here for anybody who doesn't get the word and shows up here. But again, August and September, Board of Supervisor meetings will be at the Powhatan Landmark Center. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chardine. That will open us up for our first public comment period. People speaking before the board may not be vulgar, rude, or use profane language. The public may speak on any issue that is germane to county business. The public comment period shall not include criticism of specific individuals or attacks on any person or group. No political campaigning or promoting of a business is permitted. The floor is now open. If you're speaking as an individual, you will have 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you have up to 5 minutes. Do we have anyone online, Mr. Chardine?
We have C. Lucas with their hand raised.
Okay, hold on.
Can you hear me?
Hold on 1 second. You okay waiting? Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Lucas.
I was just muted. Can you hear me again?
Yes, we can. Please state your
Okay,
name.
thank you. My
Name
name
and
is Candace Lucas, and I reside in Virginia. And I wanted to share that once again, I'm coming before this board because this board is the board that provides oversight and supervision, and you are the ultimate stewards of the taxpayers' money, specifically as it pertains to our students' educational funding. It is my understanding that a certain percentage of every dollar that every Powhatanian uses is attributed to education. And I'm here to advise you that special education is being mismanaged, misallocated, and misused by the school division. I have analyzed Powhatan school budget.
Ms.
The budget.
Ms. Lucas,
Yeah.
Lucas, excuse me. This has to be germane to county business, and the issues that you're bringing up pertain specifically to the school board. And the topic that you want to
Actually,
discuss,
they
you
do
will need to
not.
discuss that with the school board.
Actually,
not the
they do
Board of
not, sir.
Supervisors. I
Actually,
appreciate
this
you calling in.
This
Thank you.
has everything to do with the Board of Supervisors, sir. Am I being discriminated against? This has everything to do with the Board of Supervisors because you allocate the money to the school board, and you should want to know how the money is being spent. When we raised this issue in Henrico with the Board of Supervisors, they were very interested in knowing why the school board wanted more money when they were not properly managing the money that they have. So and I started my comments with stating that you allocate money. The Board of Supervisors allocates funding to the school board. So this is highly relevant to your role. this is highly relevant to your role, and stop muting me. I have a right to speak on the issues that you allocate. If you allocate money to a certain department, that is something that I can speak on. I know you don't want to hear it, but it is my right to speak on what you allocate taxpayers' dollars to. That is under your auspices. Now, I stated, and I'm letting you know that so you can be aware that the funding that you allocate to the school board is being fraudulently used. Now, as stewards of that money and as individuals who allocate that money, you need to be aware of 34 CFR 300.312. And you also need to be aware of 8 VAC 20-81-110B3, both of which require the school division to be accountable regarding what they are doing with the funding. And I should have my time set up because I was interrupted. I was interrupted by the chair, and I should have had 5 minutes.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Am I going to have to file an OCR complaint against you guys? I did not get my full 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am, you'll need to do whatever you need to do. Yes, sir. You may go ahead, sir. State your name and address.
Steve Barron, 3492 Richards Run, Powhatan, Virginia, District 3. I have a quick question. I don't know if it's the right time to speak or not. On the old business, number C, will there be a public comment period on that, or is now the time to speak about that?
That's a rezoning, so the public hearing should still be open on that. Am I right?
So we'll have
We
a,
kept
It's
it
not?
open.
Did we close it?
Kept it open, so if
It's
he wants to
closed.
speak, he needs to do it now.
Now would be the time.
now would be the time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I watched the planning commission meeting here a few months ago about this application. There was talk whether or not they needed water or sewer. I've heard all that talk, they don't. I thought the county, if you're in the water and sewer zone, you're supposed to hook up to it. But my biggest concern is, there's been talk about not being a turn lane there. The VDOT doesn't require it because there's not enough traffic flow there. If you watch that planning commission meeting, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to see the business there. I hope it gets it. But my first concern is public safety. And all y'all that travel that area, when you come over that hill through that light, most people are planning on getting through the light. They're running 55, 60 miles an hour. Once you top that hill, you're right on top of this driveway. And they were talking about pulling F-250s with 20, 25-foot trailers, I believe. I know some of y'all up here probably pull trailers. You're not going to be able to turn into that entrance there without swinging into the left lane some to make that turn. You've got to come on to a complete stop. When you do, you're looking for disaster. We need a turn lane there and acceleration lane. Same thing coming out. They're going to have to swing out wide to get out there. I'm just asking the public safety standpoint. I hope the business gets in there. I'm all for small business, but our first concern is the safety of our residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on?
Have Kathy with her hand raised.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead. Please state your name and address.
Yes, this is Kathy Halverson, and I am calling once again in reference to my son Alexander Halverson. I will continue coming to each of the boards. This is such an egregious act for my son. All of you know what we have been through, or maybe you don't, because we now have evidence that nobody is opening their emails of things that I have sent. If you go to February the 16th, the school board meeting with the special education person, it clearly states that CSA consent is not needed for private placement. My son has been out of school since November 10th, 2021.
Ms.
I have
Halverson?
sent,
Ms. Halverson, excuse me. Again, the same as the last caller. This is not germane to county business. It's the school board's issue, and your issue is with the school board. So I'm going to please ask that you contact the school board to address your concern there.
But y'all oversee the funding for the school board and the school board is doing nothing. So are you telling me that as Board of Supervisors, you don't send money to the school?
Ms. Halverson, I've spoke with the county attorney, and this is not germane to the county business. That's all I can tell you at this time. You need to take this issue up with the school board. Is there anyone else?
No, sir.
Not having anyone else, we'll close the public comment period. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Appointments.
Yeah, this is a staff appointment to both the Central Virginia Transportation Authority and Transportation Planning Organization's Technical Advisory Committees. So it would be appointing our planning director, Mike Sorello, as the primary for both of these, and myself as the alternate to both.
Mr. Chairman,
Can I-
so moved.
So moved, yeah.
Just make the motion. Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion to move Mr. Sorello and Mr. Chardine to those prospective commissions or boards. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Then library board, we have 3 vacancies to appoint here. Received several applications as well as one that was received today that was distributed to you. These are for District 1, 4, and 5.
Any motions?
I'll make a motion to,
Ms. Carmack,
I'll make a motion to approve Jerry Venable to the library board, District 5.
being we have 3, Mr. Latchney, should we separate them all?
Whichever you prefer. If everybody's in agreement, you can do all 3 at the same time.
Are you guys in agreement with what's there or you want?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood, didn't understand what Mrs. Carmack's motion was.
You wanna Repeat that, please.
Jerry Venable to the library board, District 5.
Um,
Well, why don't we roll through them and see if we can just do it?
Well, that's fine. If everybody's okay with who's the applications are,
I'm fine with that.
and you're good with 4,
4, Susan Ash.
Susan Ash for District 4, Mr. Williams,
With Kathy Harrison.
Kathy
Harris,
Harrison.
yes.
Okay, great. You guys all in favor of those 3 going to the library board?
Yes.
All in favor? Yep. Okay. Any opposed? No. That passes and go right along.
All right, and then we have one appointment to the Powhatan Community Policy and Management Team, CPMT. CPMT makes a recommendation on this and the Board of Supervisors makes the actual appointment. CPMT at their last meeting recommended reappointment of Miss Kathy James, who currently holds that position as parent representative. There are term limits. Miss James has served 1 term, so she could serve this 1 last term.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms.
I'd like
Carmack?
to make a motion to reappoint Kathy James.
Okay,
to
we
the
have a
committee.
second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ms. James gets reappointed. I know in some conversations, I think if the board's in agreement with this, we want to be able to advertise these positions for in the future, like we do all others. And I'm not saying we didn't on these, I just don't know if they were or not, but I do think that we should advertise CPMT and library board members for those positions.
Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
if we're going to discuss that and we're going to move to advertising, I would like to also address the issue about getting applications at the meeting. I think Mrs. Carmack brought up something to that effect today in one of the emails that she sent out, and I'm in agreement. We ought to have an opportunity to be able to contact applicants and have discussions with them. We shouldn't be accepting applications here at the meeting. So if we could include that with the advertising, that would be great.
I'm fine with that. I think that's a great idea. And, you know, the only way you can investigate or at least vet the applicant to
mean,
make sure it's somebody.
I
that
can't
is
do it
used.
when I show up.
I
and
agree
get-
with you,
and- and
I
get a
agree.
last minute out.
Are you guys in agreement with that we're going to
Yeah,
advertise this?
absolutely.
Okay, so going forward, Mr. Shaw. Yes, sir, Mr. Cox.
Advertising's fine. That means you need a cutoff date.
Correct.
Okay, when you advertise it, so it can't come in after.
Right. We'll put, and just put it on their website as, you know,
Absolutely.
whatever Mr. Shaw wants to go with that.
All right. Next, we have an update on the Eastern Convenience Center, PPEA, Public-Private Partnership Proposal. So as you recall, last year, we introduced this topic, solicited proposals, received one. The board reviewed that and recommended that we request a full detailed phase from the applicant. They submitted that and the working group reviewed it and last month recommended approval of that plan to the county administrator and board of supervisors. So a copy of that detailed proposal is in your packet here. We can answer any questions you have. The next formal step would be to have a workshop with the board as well as the applicants to go through the details of this, discuss it. And if the board does want to proceed with this plan, then myself and the county attorney would have to negotiate terms of a contract and agreement with them, then eventually hold a public hearing on the plan, receive public comment on that. After that time, the board may authorize us to execute a contract and begin working towards the project. So a copy of it is in here. Again, it's been reviewed by the working group who feels it meets the needs of or a convenience center from our Public Works Department.
I will, hold on, Ben, I brought this to the attention of the board for us to have a conversation about it and talk about it and discuss it and get an update on it. And I appreciate the update, Mr. Chardine. Eastern Convenience Center is a pretty, I'll call it a hot topic in the county. There's a lot of interest in it. Everybody predominantly that's been in the county or uses the transfer station, which I think is a pretty high number of people. To give you a little history of this, you know what's there, you know what you go through to get to the convenience center. But to back up a little bit on this, the previous board in 2018 brought this issue up and the majority of the board, or maybe it was unanimous, I don't even remember, agreed that we should put an Eastern Convenience Center in the county to alleviate some of the traffic and congestion that's at the current center. And I mean, I think we've all, I can't speak for everybody, but I've certainly had my fair share of calls about the convenience center. The previous Public Works Director came up with a plan that it would cost us 1.7 million or $1,750,000. The previous board approved that. By virtue of that, it went through a bond process. So we borrowed the money. And then on April 22nd, the county asked for a RFP under the previous county administrator's direction that we go do a PPEA, private-public partnership. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of the timeline of how this has transpired because as far as Mike Byerly's concerned, we needed an Eastern Convenience Center about a year and a half ago. So that final day was April 22nd. And we got one proposal in from Branchway Development. They responded. A month later, they introduced a conceptual plan. A month later, the deputy county administrator at that time put out an email with the proposer's information of what he was or they were going to do. And on that email, which was dated June 27th, 2022, it was pretty clear when they say after the final design work, they anticipate the completion within 12 months of securing all needed permits and approvals. And the most recent one we have as of tonight and the one prior to that, which would have been January 23rd, it's no longer 12 months, it's 36 months. That causes a little concern for me in this. The next thing that I'd like to bring to your attention is in that same letter dated June 27th, they were supposed to provide us with the number of potential jobs and the revenue operations to the county that were to be a much more desirable situation for us, and let us know what those positive impacts would be with that development. That development is the convenience center and the extension of a Carter Gallier that takes us from South Creek over to Luckstone. So we're going to build a road from South Creek over to Luckstone and get a convenience center. I'm all in favor of both, actually, but I think the timing of this has gotten way out of hand. And as I go through this, you'll see the money has too. So on that time frame, we get to not knowing any information other than bits and pieces that dribble out. And the letter that was dated June the 27th from our current county administrator, Mr. Chardine, the cost was going to be about $5.9 million. At $5.9 million, they were going to put this in one of two different places, our choice. We could swap land with an adjacent property owner and give them the parcel that we had purchased. And we had purchased land, 19.7 acres on October the 14th of 2021, when this board was here. And the PPEA proposal was to swap 19 acres with an adjacent property owner and put the convenience center there and not put it on the parcel that we had, but we would give that property owner that piece of land that we bought, and we'd move the convenience center over there. And from going on past that, once you get to our next update, which was November the 28th of 2022, then we get to January 23rd of this year. And on January the 23rd, in our packet that we get, that's available for you all to look at, and it's still on the website, you can go back and look at this information. It's all there. It's page 83 of the January 23rd, 2023 packet. In there, we have a detailed proposal, which is what we've waited on. And we got the detailed proposal that day. And then the timeline of what they projected for us to have this Eastern Convenience Center built was June 27th, we got that letter. Then we get the detailed proposal. November the 28th was the project update. We got that. Late January, early February 2023, the working group reviews the detailed stage proposal and makes a recommendation to the county administrator. February 2023, county administrator and county attorney negotiated a draft agreement with a proposal. That hasn't happened. None of this has happened. February the 27th, the public hearing on the proposed agreement. The board may authorize the county administrator to execute the contract after 30 days notice. That hasn't happened. March the 28th, we're going to have a contract executed. That hasn't happened. And we get to the same letter or the same thing that's in the packet on January 23rd, the description of the project, which is exactly almost word for word what's in the packet today, starting on page 37. And I'm going to read you from page 39 and from page 85 in 2020 January. They're exactly the same. Here's what we're going to do as Powhatan County, according to phase 1 of the description of the project. We're going to swap parcels with the contiguous landowner. Phase 2, we're going to rezone the other landowner's property from A10 to commercial. Then in phase 3, the important phase here, we're going to find out how much it's going to cost for us to build the road, for us to build the convenience center. Phase 3, it says construction ready, hard construction bid, structure project financing. Parties enter into mutually agreed PPEA agreement. Phase 3 is when we're going to enter into our mutually agreed upon PPEA agreement. Close the real estate transaction. Contractor, pre-con, and authorized commencement of construction. I don't know about you. I don't want to build a house and 6 months after I start building the house, I get my final price. I want to know what my price is going in upfront. I want to know the dimensions and everything else. I want to know all the details. I'll give you an example. January 23rd, same packet. We had a $500,000 project from another engineering firm that gave us 13 pages of details. This project today has 1, 2, 3.5 pages, and we're talking about millions. When you go through these phases and you look at this and it's not happening, I get a little bit concerned over who I'm doing business with at that point. I'm become a little bit suspect over how this is playing. I don't have a price. And when I go from 12 months to 36 months, that's a long time that it's changed. The interesting part, or probably one of the most interesting parts to me, and I said almost word for word, the January 23rd packet with the information and today's packet are basically word for word. Under the construction or the cost estimates, the short-term financing is exactly the same, $190,000. The legal cost, $52,000. Professional fees, $250,000. It's on the screen. I don't know if we can make it a little bit larger there or not. The fees and permits, $321,500. Power to the convenience center, $131,000. To build this road, which from a conversation I had in January with Mr. Chardin, I don't know if he'll remember it or not, I asked, how long is this road? 4,570 feet, that's 0.866 miles. He got that information from VDOT because they've put a bid out, or not a bid, but a proposal that this road would cost $15 million. That's their proposal. We want to do it through a public-private so we can save some money. It'd be a little bit less. That's the idea and the philosophy behind this. All of those numbers match up to the January 23rd packet number, except the next one. That number on January the 23rd from this proposer was $1,775,812. We're 6 months later, and that number is now 2.4 million, $2,452,500, $676,000 more in a 6-month period of time. Everybody that's paid any attention, we all know inflation has come into play, but not on building this road, just on this convenience center. These are red flags to me when I look at this. The total amount on January the 23rd was $7,206,249. The total amount in today's packet, $7,882,937. In our packet today, the very next line down after you see that total amount, it says alternate pricing not included in the total budget above. Give you an example of that. There's 11 items listed for alternate pricing. Water line extension from South Creek to the convenience center, $212,000. Water line extension from the convenience center to Carter Gallier Station and to Dutoy Creek, future connection, $102,000. Water line extension from Carter Gallier Station connecting to existing at Luckstone, $337,000. Not to bore you with all 11 of them, I'm going to give you these 3 right here, which I think, or maybe 4, which I think are probably a little bit more pertinent, and everyone here who's been to the convenience center will get it. Not included in the 2.4 million, concrete paving to be provided in place of stone at the Eastern Convenience Center and compact area. $317,000 for that concrete paving. Concrete paving to be provided in place of the stone in front of the recycling containers, $226,000. Concrete paving to be provided in place of the stone at the service entrance at Carter Gallier, $91,000. Pavement in place of stone for the service access road, $299,000. Goes on. The total amount of that is $1.6 million. Most of you know that I've been in the car business. That's called building a ticket. You start at this price and then you start raising it up and raising it up and raising it up. You go in at 7.8 million. And if you add all of these things in, now you're at 9.5 million. I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with that. I need, as I've heard many on this board say, I need a little bit more information for that to get to that point. And I know I'm getting a little bit long with this, but this is your money and it's an Eastern Convenience Center that you desperately want. My phone has rang for 3.5 years, not every day, but it's always on a monthly basis about it's closed, it's not open, I can't get to it, the recycle bins are full, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So to me, I'm a little bit concerned about rezoning property. I'm going to ask the county attorney a question about that. The other property that's involved, that should we go down this path, which clearly, you know, I'm not favoring at this point, can we just automatically rezone all of that property legally?
Well, you can rezone it, but you can't make it a condition of a deal, because zoning has to be based on public convenience, general welfare, good zoning practice. So we can't, in a contract, say we will rezone you to X, Y, or Z without considering public necessity, convenience, all of that. So we could not contractually obligate ourselves to a specific zoning. We could say we'll allow you to apply for that zoning, but it would have to go through the process.
And when I look at this, when I read this and I see phase 1, swap the property, phase 2, rezone, phase 3, a hard bid, and the verbiage that was used in phase 3 was the parties enter into a mutually agreed to PPEA agreement. We, at this point, phase 1 and 2, we've already done at least the rezoning part of it, and we don't even have an agreement or a contract.
Right. This basically is, we'll do A and B, and then we have an agreement to agree on C, is what C says. It says we'll agree later to agree on that, which technically isn't.
That's not a contract.
It's not worth the paper it's written on for
Right, okay.
enforceability wise.
Okay. So I've got a lot of concerns, and from my position, I'm just going to tell you this, based upon things that we've heard over the past 1.5 years, Mike Byerly's going to call this Keystone 2. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm going to make a motion that we terminate this PPEA proposal. We end it. We find out. That's what my motion will be, to end this PPEA agreement, to terminate it.
I'll second.
Question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cox.
We don't have a PPEA agreement to terminate.
It's a good point.
I'm sorry.
It's a good point.
I think what he meant was terminate the process.
Process,
Yeah,
yeah,
the process. To terminate the process. Now, would you like to second that?
I'll second, yeah, the process.
Okay.
No, open for discussion, correct?
Yep, the floor is open.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Carmack.
similarly, we've been going at this for close to 2 years. And we have 41 pages of requirements or how to do a PPEA. And after a year and a half, 2 years, we have 3 pages, and this is the schematic that we have of the road. I mean, do any of you, if he hadn't said the length of the road, I don't know. It's nowhere on here how much they're even paving. And then come to find out today that the only thing that the applicant or the, I guess applicant, PPA partner is putting in the convenience center, but we're providing all the equipment and obviously operating it. So he's, clearing the land and putting some cement pads down, I mean, to the tune of millions of dollars. Furthermore, if you look at our quote unquote requirements, you should be kind of entering a partnership with somebody that has experience with the PPEA. He has none. And that's no slight to the developer. It just is what it is. He has no experience, hasn't done one, has never built a convenience center. If I'm going to choose a partner, I would rather pick one that has some experience in doing this. And lastly, we need to know the price of this before we commit to getting in bed with somebody, or this is going to cost the citizens of this county a lot more money. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Cox.
I don't really disagree with a lot of what y'all have said.
Is your microphone working?
Is it on here?
Okay.
Okay, I don't necessarily disagree at all with the theme of what you're talking about, but it's kind of, okay, now what? Now what? I would rather, we have a workshop scheduled for this, rather than making a decision tonight. We can make a decision, okay, but I want to come out of it with at least a direction of kind of where we're going, okay? And if this is not the way to go, so be it. So there's motion on the floor, that's fine, but I would ask you that you defer that for our workshop. Let's go through there and look at many of the questions that you've raised. And also, what are my alternatives? Okay, I need an alternative. That's part of what I'd like to see. Okay. So that's my 2 cents, is not to put it, to shoot it tonight, but to get some more information. And in addition, if we're not going to go with the PPEA, what direction are we going to go in? That's all. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. McClung.
What I like, with our comment on our imaginary partners, don't have yet, but I've met with the contractors, developers, and the thing that concerns me is that they were going to use mostly Powhatan-based businesses and construction companies to do the work that needed to be done when need be. But I would agree with you, Mr. Cox. We need to do a workshop to get our questions answered, to see where we do stand with the our partners. Maybe we can come to agreement, maybe we can't, but we got to work through it first. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
You read my mind. Brent, I'd like to have your comments. Okay, we started on a process, and I'm like Mr. Cox, I don't disagree with what you said, Mr. Biley. It has been a elongated process. At this point, we don't tonight have information in front of us. I would agree. When I talked to Mr. Chardon before the meeting, I asked him what was the purpose of the meeting tonight and having this on the agenda. Because I knew we had the upcoming workshop where we were going to get the specificity that we've all been looking for about the project. That was on the workshop, was my understanding. But I'm going to defer to the county administrator because he is the person that's been the most involved. I haven't been involved day to day on this, but I didn't anticipate coming here and getting replete information for the project with something that was put on for discussion tonight. I assumed that it was going to be an update again on where we are, and I'm as frustrated as everybody else. It's taken longer than what I thought. But again, we have a workshop scheduled when, Mr. Chardon?
August 15th, I think is the tentative date.
Okay, or do you anticipate at that time getting detailed information addressing the questions that all of us have about this project, about what's entailed in the project, what's the cost? Is that forthcoming in terms of your dealings with this particular project? Is that?
Yeah, so the plan would be to have the applicant and their, their team, engineers, staff on hand to answer any of the questions that haven't been addressed in their proposal. And I'll say that staff, we share the frustration as well. It has dragged out and been a long process. Our goal has been to get all the information and bring it to you when, we feel we have it right. So we've been, as questions come up, we've been proposing to the applicant and trying to get more information, but we have been at this for a while. So I agree that the center is much needed, whether it's through this process or another. We do need to get going on something. At this point, we're 3 weeks away from that planned workshop. So I would, I think, agree with Mr. McClung that we have that workshop, speak to the applicant, get some of these questions answered, and then see how we want to proceed and move forward. And there are other options and alternatives. We had a study done to identify the number of properties. And years ago, staff toured some of those, looked at them. Then we started pursuing this and felt like this was a way to accomplish a number of things that we've had on the books for years separately at a lower cost and more quickly. It is still a big number. It is still taking a long time, but looking at doing Carter Gallier by itself or Convenience Center by itself also has some big numbers and long timelines. So we saw some promise in this, but we can also give you more information on what the alternatives would be if you all choose to not move forward with this. So yeah, I would suggest we hold that workshop, but then be prepared to move forward one way or another. We do need to get this going, and we understand that.
Well, Brad, do you see a benefit to getting the detailed information by which we can, whatever direction we go, we'll have more information? And if we choose that we don't want to go forward with PPA, we'll have information that we can use. Whoever we go with, we will have more information than what we've had. Now, in terms of the convenience center, whatever route we take, we're going to have to outfit it. Is that correct? I mean, with the backhoe and
Yeah, and some of the equipment we get from our vendors, whether it's the recycling, Central Virginia Waste Management, some of the others that whether it's through this proposal or another, those things will be provided through those vendors.
But the chairman is right. When I saw the same thing he saw, when I saw the alternative pricing, with the things, if you want gravel, this is fine. But if you want concrete, if you want the pavement going into it, all this is going to cost you more. I think all of us were looking for what does the job look like and what is the cost? So that was surprising to me. But I'm more of the mind of Mr. McClung that we go ahead and get the information. Let's get the detailed information. If that's what's forthcoming, if we're going to get what we've been looking for all these months in 3 weeks, in your opinion, Mr. Chardon, does it benefit us to go forward with that meeting, get the information, and then at that point, we want to go a different route? We still have more information by which we can evaluate future applicants, vendors, for the project. Do you see a benefit of having a meeting?
Yeah, and we've certainly through this process learned more about our needs and the specs and things for a convenience center. So whether it's this or another, we've learned quite a bit, and we'll, I think, build a better station that will serve the public well and for longer. And two, I'll add, ultimately our number one responsibility is to the public in this, but also I think we do have responsibility to hear the applicant and meet with them. They've spent a lot of time on this. They've spent a not insignificant amount of money on the engineering and all that. So we have not had a face-to-face meeting with them and the board here as a body to hear it out. So it ultimately it needs to make sense for you all and be affordable and what the public wants. But I think we would be remiss to not have that meeting with the applicant and hear out their proposal and get all of our questions answered before making a decision.
And the other thing is, I think we owe it to the public, just like the discussion tonight, which I think is a good discussion. I think we owe it to the public to give them as much information as possible. So whatever decision we make, they'll be comfortable with it. They'll feel like we've made the best decision we can make. Now, I've said from the beginning, whatever we do, if we do Carter Gallery, fine. If we don't do Carter Gallery, fine. If we do that another way, fine. But whatever we do, it has to be fair, transparent, and cost-effective for both the public, the developer, for everyone. It has to be. There's no other way we can do it. So I look at it this way. I can support another 3 weeks with the idea that we go ahead and get as much information as possible. And then if we say, okay, as Mr. Miley has said, I can't go any further with this route, we go a different route. We'll have that information, the public will have that information, and they'll understand more about the project cost, what it entails, and then why we're doing what we're doing. In whatever direction we go, the public will be informed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Williams. And I do think that, that's the whole purpose of having the conversation, to get the public informed. And I just want to make sure that I understand the rezoning of I don't remember the number of acres, close to 50 acres to commercial from agriculture. There's no way that can be tied into this deal at all. Am I right?
Not by a contractual obligation. We could not say this contract is contingent. They could put a contingency in there, but we couldn't promise we would meet that. I mean,
We can't make a firm commitment that we're going to
promise a rezoning.
Right. And then there's another thing I'm going to ask you, Mr. Latchney, because I'm not real familiar with it, but I just want to make sure. We have a PPEA policy, right?
Yeah, it was adopted several years ago, yes.
2014, 2015,
Yeah.
2016.
Right after I got here.
In that policy, does it state that the board has the ability to request a third-party review as long as the cost to do that does not exceed $50,000?
I think that's in there. I'd have to double check it, but that's not an unusual type of provision to have in a PPA ordinance, because a lot of counties don't have sufficient staff to review something themselves.
So as a board, once we go through and we're going to get these answers in the next 21 days that we haven't got in the past year and a half, we can request a third-party review of whatever their proposal is. And they, meaning Branchway Development, is going to be responsible for that expense.
Yeah, I think you could do that. I think your single biggest problem is going to be, it has been since this started, is the proposal, I don't think has ever included or intends to include hard numbers. And so that's going to be the difficulty. And the thing you're going to have to analyze at some point is, I don't think the proposer has ever said, these are firm numbers, these are budget. And so it's going to be difficult to draft a contract that protects the county if we don't have firm numbers. So that may be one of the things that the applicant needs to think about before the work session next month, is can they make firm number proposals based on a certain timeline? I understand you don't want to hold them open for 2 years, but I think that's one of the things we should suggest to the applicant, because I don't know how you consider this if you don't actually know what it costs. And that, I think, has been the recurring issue, is that there are numbers but if they're not firm, if they're not a committed, locked in amount, like you do under an RFP, if you issue an RFP, you get a firm proposal and you sign a contract. So that would be one of the things I would recommend to the applicant is they need to look at their numbers and say, will they commit to them? And if they won't, why not? That would be the thing I would say would help push the work session forward as much as anything.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cox.
I'd like to pick up on something you touched on and started with. The process in terms of terms and conditions looks very linear. It's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. let's stop at phase 3 because that's where the hard numbers come in. I would like for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 to be pieces of a pie. Okay, and I want to see what the pie looks like before there are any commitments for any of the pieces. And that includes the hard numbers at that point. But we don't go to, this sounds like we do phase 1, then we go to phase 2 and phase 3. I would suggest that all 3 of those phases have to fit together. None of them get improved by themselves, if in fact we want to continue with this. So they are bundled together and you can't really pass judgment on one without the other. You know, and I know that the proposal, we're going to flip to the back or we're going to go to the bottom line and see what the bottom line number is, okay? Then we're going to work back, okay? So phase 3 has hard numbers. So I can't deal with the rest of this until I know, one, do I think I can afford it? Do I want to afford it? And what do I get for it? So just as Mr. Lackney said, we need hard numbers. I need to look at all the first 3 phases as a bundle that fits together so that I understand, at least conceptually and with some real numbers, what they want to do. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I just, you know, and I agree with you guys. I'm probably beyond frustrated with it because the people that we work for, they're the ones that go to that convenience center and get upset. And they pay taxes for that service. And I don't think we're completely fulfilling or at least even adequate with how we're doing it now. And this started back in 2018. And you know, I have a motion, I have a second to terminate this. I'd like to take a vote on it. Do we need to do a roll call or can we just?
Excuse me, would you give me the, Mr. Farley, would you give me the motion in its entirety, not just terminate this? I need to.
The motion would be that we terminate this process with the PPEA effective immediately. Now, when I say that, I know your questions and I heard your questions over, you know, I want to have an alternative, but the first thing we have to do is close this and then we can talk about how we want to proceed going forward to be, as Mr. Williams said, transparent, open, and let the citizens of this county know what's going on with this Eastern Convenience Center. So the first thing is, from my perspective, that's where I'm at with it. So I want to have a vote. I just want to know if we need to.
It's up to you. You're as chairman, you can,
Okay.
it's your discretion.
You guys got questions? Oh, yeah, yeah, no.
Along with what you said, I don't believe they're connected either. I mean, either you want to wait 3 weeks and get more information and have that information available for future decision making and for transparency, like you said, or, you know, you don't. I mean, so I don't see the linkage either.
Yeah. I don't see things changing in 3 weeks, but we'll go at it. Unless anybody else has another comment they'd like to make.
I got one more. I think we
Okay.
all do agree that we want an Eastern Convenience Center, so I get the same, every time I go to the Western when they hound me too, so. But I think we all do agree, we want that thing bad, so.
You're available for trash pickup
Yes,
truck.
yes, I got a truck.
What's your phone number? All in favor of terminating this process of PPEA now, immediately, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay,
Right.
The nays have that. So we'll have a workshop on August the 15th.
yes.
All right, next item under old business is ordinance 2023-07.
Let me interrupt real quick.
Excuse me.
I have on my calendar the 17th and the county website says the 17th. So
It's been changed.
has it been changed? We
Yeah.
need to update the website then.
I thought it was, is it the 14th or 15th?
August the 15th.
15th,
Okay.
Tuesday.
At what time?
3 o'clock.
Was it 3 o'clock? Brett?
Yep,
So
3
so
p.m.
3 p.m.,
What day you got?
August 15th.
Yeah.
That's a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
At 3 p.m. And that is like our other meetings will be at the Landmark Center.
Correct.
So everybody knows. All right. Okay.
Yeah, and we have our planning director, Mike Sorello, to present updates on the Jesse rezoning that was deferred from last month, where we held the public hearing.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. So this is a continuation of a public hearing in a case that we started last meeting. The request is to rezone a parcel in eastern Powhatan County from residential utility to commerce center. The property is located less than a mile west of the intersection between Route 60 and Stave Mill Road. If approved, the applicant intends to use the existing structure on the property as an office space for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning installation business. An office is a use by right permitted within the CC zoning district. Staff work with the applicant and VDOT for the commercial entrance classification. VDOT has determined that the entrance meets the requirement for a low volume commercial entrance designation. Staff was also able to conclude that since the site plan is not required for this application, DPW will not require the applicant to connect county water and sewer. These are discussions that we have had since our last meeting. That was one of the questions that you had raised. They have proffered two items. One is to limit the use to office as specified in the application. They have also proffered any future development of this parcel, which will increase the number of daily trips to more than 50 trips per day, or any increase in intensity or change in use shall require a review by VDOT in compliance with any necessary changes to the commercial entrance onto Anderson Highway. Of course, any change of use or increase in intensity would kick in another public review in any case. The applicant is here if you have any questions. We also have DOT here and Johnny from Public Works to answer questions for you.
Got one
Any
question.
questions?
I got, Mike, can you repeat what you said about the water and sewer hookup?
At this point, it is not required
Okay.
for them. It would be frankly cost prohibitive. There was a scheme that they sent us where the connection would be, and correct me, Johnny, if I'm wrong, across the entire width of 60 to make that connection, which is not an insignificant sum of money. I
And
mean,
the applicant has a working sewer and septic system on site now. So, I mean, water, a well, and a septic system.
That is correct. And of course, if it were to fail, they would be required to
Yes.
tap into it. Or if a more intense use showed up as a site plan at some point in the future, it would open up a whole series of questions: water, sewer connections, transportation improvements,
Yep.
et cetera.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Cirillo. There are two proffers,
Yes, sir.
and the second one says the property shall not deviate from the use as specified.
It says specifically, development of the property shall not deviate from the use as specified in the application office, provided to staff and dated 2/16/23.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
Like, the issue that we've had was the requirement to hook up to water and sewer. Something that all of us are passionate about. We have received information, from our utilities director, Mr. Mellis, explaining to us the infeasibility, the cost prohibitive nature of hooking up in this instance.
I think that would be up to the applicant to make the determination what would be cost prohibitive for them as a small business.
Well, that's the way it's, coming across. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because, as I shared with the county administrator, this is a new wrinkle. Heretofore, we've always said, if you look at the lines drawn on the map on the east side of Route 60, if you're within the water and sewer district or within so many feet, you're going to hook up. And that was the simplistic approach that we've operated under for as long as I can remember. But now we've got another wrinkle. Now, we understand, from Mr. Mellis, and I'll let him explain the ins and outs if y'all want to get into the detail. But it would require going underneath Route 60 to get over to the other side to bring it to the applicant that we have before us tonight. That would increase the county's liability, and it's really not something from an engineering standpoint, as I understand from Mr. Mellis, that we would want to do. So that leaves open the question of what do we do as we develop up and down Route 60 where we have this situation where the lines are on the other side of Route 60 and they go back and forth. What do we do and how do we fill in over time? So if we don't require these folks to to connect today, under what conditions going forward would we require them to hook up as we develop on Route 60? So that's the question. And we've never discussed this. And we have nothing in our ordinances to address it. Now, that's something that we have to address going forward. So I just want to put that out there because right now, what we're saying is the connection that came through from the other side of the road, from the South Creek side over to Starbucks, that you really can't hook up from there. I see Mr. Mellis shaking his head in the audience. He's my go-to guy. He's the subject matter expert. So that said, I want people to understand why they are not hooking up, okay? When we have this policy that says you will hook up. It's been pretty much of a black and white policy. You're within so many feet. But now we've got a different wrinkle, don't we? So my question is, and the question is to Mike and to the board and the county administrator, what do we do going forward as we develop on Route 60? Is it anything that can be conditioned such that at some point, when it does become what we would deem feasible for them to hook up, what would be the proffer and the requirement for them to do it? Is that something that you want to consider? So I put that out there for your discussion, for your input.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. McClung.
I'll go after you.
the, as far as this case, I mean, on a case-by-case basis, in this particular case, which is before us tonight, it's just not feasible, like y'all say, to bore under water and sewer all the way to the other side of 60 when the man has a working septic tank and well. And in the past, that house has been a business for years, in the past, with no issues at all. But I mean, as far as, I think we do need to relook, maybe another workshop to come up with a plan on feasibility of hooking to our water and sewer. But in this case right here, I cannot.
No,
Support that. Yeah.
Mr. McClung, I want you to understand, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think we do it tonight and
Oh,
have
no.
that requirement. What I am saying, is there something that you want to consider when things change, and they will change?
Yeah.
We will develop on Route 60.
Right.
Now, you'll hear me talk about that more tonight. We will develop on Route 60. And when we develop around this piece of property, do we want it to remain an island always and not connect to, water and sewer? Or is there a condition in the future where it wouldn't be onerous to have that requirement in place? That's the question I'm raising.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Carmack.
question. I understand that they have to go under 60. Why can't they take it from the Starbucks over there? And I get that it's cost prohibitive, but help me understand. I don't understand. They've got perfectly good water and sewer.
Right. I would imagine that the answer is that there's not the capacity. So that when they went underneath, if they didn't bring enough capacity to share with adjacent properties. Is that accurate?
They physically could bring it down. They would have to acquire easements from an additional, it's either 3 property owners, so to come across their properties. So that's probably the biggest holdup if they were to do that. Also the 2-inch line that was sized going to Starbucks and O'Reilly's for the wastewater was never anticipated to serve much more than that knoll area. That was on that project.
I mean, going forward, I think something that we absolutely should do is when they're bringing these pipes under the road, why would we not require them to have something that could
This,
have the capacity to, I mean, that's,
Yes.
I
totally-
wholeheartedly
Yes.
agree with you.
Yes.
There would have to be a public pump station built to serve that as well. Because of where they were, topography was not going to make it to across the road to serve their structure. They did want to, Starbucks and O'Reilly's did want to physically put in individual services across. We actually made them put in an 8-inch water line as well as easement across both fronts of their property, as we've been doing on all of the projects. And as neighboring projects do connect, have them extend it as well as try to get easement across the front of their properties so that every time it's building along.
Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
Mrs. Carmack asked the right question. That was the exact question I was going to ask. If we're looking at serving these other parcels and we're saying you can't do it on a one-to-one basis, every time somebody hooks up, you're going to go underneath Route 60. So all those parcels on the other side of Route 60, opposite the water, whichever side you're on, you bring it across, what are we doing to plan for future connections on that side once we get across? That's the question. And what it, and again, who pays for the capacity?
Right.
So we're not going to get this solved tonight, okay? The reason I'm bringing it up, we got a problem. Our policy doesn't really address all the wrinkles we've discovered with the engineering aspect of it. Ours has been just, well, if you're on the lines in parallel, right, 60, you hook up. It's not that easy. So the question is, Mr. Mellis, you're the subject matter expert. What do you recommend we do?
There are alternative methods and there's ways you could, one, if the water line is extended beyond your property, you're required to connect. That would require an ordinance change. There's sometimes it will take some others putting in the infrastructure across Route 60, main lines, but not individual services. We, the county in perpetuity, don't want to have individual services across Route 60.
All right, I'm going to suggest we have you come forward with recommendations as to how we address this going forward in our ordinance from an engineering standpoint and from a policy standpoint, and working with water and sewer on Road 60. How do we address this? And what does the ordinances look like? My understanding is as we go forward, any change in use with the applicants would require a new site plan. And then at such time, there may be something in place that would meet the requirement that you're going to bring to us, right?
Yep.
All right.
If there was a site plan required, it would have met that requirement.
Okay.
And are you finished with?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Williams?
Yes, sir.
And that's the point. I mean, that's where we were last month when we were talking about this. There's no site plan required. So the dive goes a little bit deeper than just what do we need to do, you know? And, you know, the problem, and it's a problem, okay? So when you're up here, it's your job to find the solution, and you guys, the staff, to help us out, and you do a tremendous job, so thank you. But going forward, you know, this problem started when water came into Powhatan County decades ago, before many people moved here. And they don't, you know, the issue we have is you pay taxes in this county, and as an example, the water structure, infrastructure, everything that we buy for the water for the county costs, throw a number out, $5 million. And we get people hooked up and they pay 3 million. So we're $2 million upside down. And that's everybody who lives a half a mile off of Route 60, you're paying for that water on Route 60. I agree that, there needs to be a solution. The pump station you mentioned, and not to put you on the spot, but a little bit, just roughly ballpark, what's a pump station cost?
A public pump station,
Well, that's what we're talking about, I think.
roughly probably 700,000 to 800,000.
Okay. How much does it cost to run water from the north side of Route 60 to the south side of Route 60? How much does that cost? Ballpark. I'm not holding you to anything. Just ballpark on top of your head.
300,
300,000.
300,000.
So we could bring water over at 300,000 at various increments. And that would help us out a little bit. The problem we have is you need more people to hook up to the water. You get more people to hook up to the water, more people pay, and then you go. But we are upside down. So the taxpayers in the county are subsidizing all the water on Route 60. I think that Mr. Williams' proposal, come to us with something that can help us alleviate this a little bit to where we can make it a little bit more, I guess, inviting or welcoming in some way. And at the same time, achieve what we want to accomplish, which is get more water hookups, get more sewer hookups. I'm of that opinion. I was a small business owner in this county for 25 years, and Starbucks and O'Reilly has a lot more money than Mike Byerly. And if we can find a way that we can entice them to make it so it's a little bit larger capacity there, then maybe it's a little bit easier to get the right of ways. And I'm going to address something else that was brought up earlier during public comment period, the turn lane. And I think there's a distinct thing about the turn lanes there. I'm not going to argue that point too much, but I am going to say, because the safety is an issue for all of us, and we have to think about that. And we all want local small businesses. We just want businesses on Route 60 to help share some of the burden from the taxpayers so that the real estate tax rate can stay low. When you think about that, because people that's going to go, let's just say that they work for that company, they're going to come from the east. They're going to be heading west. They're going to stop at a stoplight. Any of us that's lived here a long time, there was a really tragic accident there a few years ago with a dump truck. And people travel fast going east on Route 60 there. But that person that wants to make that turn to go back to this location, to make the U-turn, they're sitting still. And the light's going to change. And when the light changes, hopefully, as most things with the transportation, you hope those people pay attention that the lights changed and they need to stop. So at that point, the U-turn begins. And that person's not running 60 miles an hour and going to run right into the back of the person turning into this property. I've got a question for the property owner or the applicant. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are y'all?
Good, good. Name, sir?
Charles Jesse.
Mr. Jesse, I've been told, and I think I've heard this correctly, I just want to make sure, you have approximately 20 vehicles maybe, or 15? What's the number of vehicles your company has?
We currently have 5 company trucks and 4 company trailers.
Okay.
We and our individual employees report to their site via their vehicle. We don't supply transportation for them.
So these trucks leave your office with a trailer when they go to the job site? I'm trying to figure out
So
where
it's a
these trucks,
very-
if you have 5 trucks, where are they parked?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to tell you that. So for example, what the concerns were with the 24-foot trailers and such, they're not typically at our office. Currently on site, we have a 14-foot trailer there, parked there, and 2 box trucks. Our 24-foot trailers get loaded and stay on job sites. We don't typically ever bring them here unless there's a lull in jobs, in which case be there for a day, but it's
And what
one
do you
trip in,
carry
one
on
trip
that?
out, and then gone again for weeks on end.
I get it. I'm sorry. What do you, what's, is it, I'm just assuming it's HVAC supplies that's on these trailers?
Yes, sir.
And do you go to a distributor when you run out, if the trailer's empty, you're on a job, the trailer's empty?
So for equipment purposes, yes, all the big boxes and everything, yes, sir. We go to places, load them up, and then they go to the job site. So when we're hauling in and out of our site, they're always empty. We have a single material trailer, which is small items, PVC fittings, that type of stuff. Once again, it lives on site, very rarely comes back.
Okay. So number of employees that you have that's going to be at this site?
We have a office admin, we have an owner, we have myself, and we have an energy auditor that will be there daily. And not so much like, so when I say this, the only person that's truly ever there on site daily is nobody. Our office administrator is required to be there 3 days a week. We work underneath the weatherization kind of schedule, so we're only Monday through Thursday anyways, and we allow them to work remotely.
These vehicles that you have, do you have a second location or is this going to be your only location?
Only location, because we are licensed in Virginia and West Virginia, and our work scope is the entire state of Virginia as well as West Virginia. So we we have employees in Richmond, also throughout Southwest Virginia.
Do you store any supplies at your venue?
Only small items. We never store equipment there.
Okay. Are the vehicles in the trailers going to be registered in Powhatan County?
That would be our hope, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Any other comments?
I have a question for the county attorney, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
There's been questions raised about, the efficacy of having a turn lane there. My understanding is VDOT is not requiring, let's see, my other subject matter expert,
That's correct.
Ms.
The
Worley, they're not,
the site does not meet turn lane requirements.
Okay.
That's correct.
but it will be a commercial entrance.
A low volume commercial entrance. That's correct.
Explain the difference, because I'm not sure I understand.
A low volume commercial entrance is under 50 vehicles per day
Yeah.
anticipated, and it's not subject to access management.
Okay, does that mean that it has to be a 50-foot entrance like the regular commercial entrance?
No, sir. We would work with the applicant on the requirements in the VDOT right of way in terms of whether it was gravel or paved, depending on their needs, but there's no specific requirements for a concrete width entrance like there is for a typical commercial entrance.
And there's no way the county can require that because we defer to you and your minimum standards.
I believe because there's no site plan required, we could not review the auto turn movements or anything like that for a commercial.
Like I said,
entrance.
we have now, deferred to you as staff and VDOT's minimum standards. So whatever you require is what we have to go with. We can't ask or require anything above your minimum standards.
We would not require it. I
I
believe.
know, but
Yeah. Mhm.
that's where I'm going to the county attorney. We can't require something above VDOT minimum standards today. If they don't recommend it,
We can ask for a proffer, but we don't have any statutory, anything in our ordinances.
we could
that allow
ask for it,
We
but,
can ask for, we can't mandate.
but if we were legally in court, if we were taken to court, we couldn't defend that position, could we?
No, I mean, if the
I mean, if
applicant
we
is-
turned them down because they didn't accept, our mandate of a proffer and they didn't give it to us, I mean, we couldn't do anything, could we?
Probably not. There might be an extenuating circumstance where such a proffer, the court would say you were reasonable
Okay,
to reject.
I just
but-
want people to understand, what the rules are. So thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
sir. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other comments, questions? Your district, Mr. McClung.
I like the motion that we approve 0-2023-07.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. McClung.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mrs. Carmack.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye. Motion passes.
Moving on to new business, the only item under that is a leave payout request from former county administrator, Mr. Smither. And there is a memo from the county attorney on this subject in your packet.
Comments, questions? No comments, no questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Cox.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny Mr. Smithers' request.
We have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Do we have any comments? Comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Latchney, we
Clement.
have to act on this tonight one way or the other, correct?
We have to act on it. You could defer it, but you do have to take action. This is actually a state code provision that allows a citizen or somebody who claims they're owed money to bring a petition to the board and ask for approval of that. So it will require board action, if not tonight, to next week. But yes, we do need to act on it.
Any other comments, questions? Do we need to do a roll call on that?
Up to you.
Let's do a roll call.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. McClung,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
Mrs. Carmack,
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye.
Public hearings, the first one of the evening is ordinance 2023-08, rezoning case 23-07, Quan.
Rezoning request by Charles Kwan is requesting to rezone from Ag 10 to Commerce Center. It's approximately 3.66 acres on the westbound side of Anderson Highway. This is approximately a mile and a half from the intersection of Jude's Ferry and Anderson Highway. The applicant plans to use the property for an automotive repair and servicing business. Vehicle repair and servicing is a permitted use within the CC zoning district. One of the questions here was the question of transportation related to trip generation of this use, and would that kick in a requirement for a turn lane? And we can answer that in the affirmative. Because that's a requirement of the site plan and would be determined at the time of site plan review, it's not something that would be proffered because it's a requirement. The applicant has proffered two items. One is that the development of the property will substantially follow the conceptual site plan created by Christopher Consultants and dated 7/7/23. And the second one is development shall include dedicated right-of-way and access easement outside of VDOT's right-of-way for a future bike pedestrian pathway of 8 feet minimum, parallel to US 60. The sidewalk or multi-use path shall connect to adjacent sidewalks at some point in the future if it were built. You have been given a copy of the site plan. On that site plan, you'll show there are two easements that have been created to connect this property to adjacent properties. As you know, one of the goals is to improve interconnectivity between parcels so that users are not having to use 60 to get from point A to point B, which is one of the biggest challenges we have for maintaining the level of service we have on 60 right now. Is we don't need cars going back onto 60 to go to an adjacent parcel. So they have offered those up, both of those easements.
This is a public hearing, so we will open up the floor for the public. If you'd like to speak on this, please come down in this hearing. Do we have anyone online?
No, sir.
Not seeing anyone, we'll close the public hearing. Board members.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
Mike, it says on page 187, the applicant estimates less than 15 trips per day in and out of the property. Is staff in support of that estimation?
At the time that it was reviewed, it appears as though staff was in approval of that.
Do you have any concern about that? I know, and let me explain to
Yeah.
folks, we've had a changeover of staff. We have a new planning director, so he's trying to catch up, okay? He's got a lot of things going on, so if we are addressing things and trying to backfill with information, it's not on him. It's the circumstances in which, he has come on board. So I want to make that clear.
I appreciate that. I would argue that if the use is as presented, that's not unreasonable. My honest opinion is it seems a little low.
Okay. The reason I'm going to tell you, I don't believe it, is because I'm looking at a site plan with, it looks like 75 plus parking spaces. To have 15 trips, if you had 5 employees, 6 employees, that's 12 trips if they come to work and go home. Okay, you wouldn't need all these parking spaces, and it's going to be a 2-story building. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think, and here's the other thing. We want the business to grow. We don't want 5 or 6, people coming to work every day. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Charlie. I'm currently at 18 West Roanoke, but will soon be a Powhatan resident at 3001 St. Mary's Way. Thank you, Mike, for presenting that. And as for the questions of all the parking spaces, our hope is to grow. At the time of application, due to the interim planning director and a little bit of miscommunication, those numbers were low. I asked her whether our first year numbers should be the case, or whether our final where we hope to project to be at the end of 3-5 years, the amount of customers and techs and service advisors that we hope to have on staff. To amend that number, I did have Christopher, my site planner. I did have him do an ITT study and present that to VDOT, which the VDOT engineer, Adam something, has that.
Yeah.
That trip number, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it did fall into a right lane warrant.
I talked to VDOT this afternoon. I talked to Miss Worley about that, and she found that information.
Yes.
We don't have it, but she has it, and I'm going to be asking her to share it as well. So that's much more accurate.
Yeah, he estimated, I think, to site around 56 trips a day, if I ballpark off the top of my
Okay.
head.
If I may I ask her to come
Oh, of
up and
course, yes.
join you? Welcome again.
Thank you.
All right, here's the question. As you've heard us say, we're very concerned about Road 60. We've got sheets with 2 entrances. Then we have another piece of property. Then we have this gentleman's property. And then we have the car wash. Okay, so you've got all those entrances right there in a short space. All right, so what we don't want to have is what I refer to as Route 60 from Belt Boulevard out to Chippenham. We can learn from our neighbors to the east. That is a nightmare. That's why the city of Richmond is trying to downzone to fix it. So we've been very parochial about the way we treat Road 60 because we're the workforce for the region. We have to get in and out of this county. So those entrances present us a challenge. So I don't want to do this with blinders on and pretend we just got this one entrance tonight when I've got an existing entrance right next door with a turn lane going into it. Then I've got a vacant lot to the east, and then I've got 2 entrances on the parcels next to that. So when we say, some type of joint entrance, I'm not looking at interparcel access where you go into the property and then you have a stub road going to the east and west. What I thought you were going to refer to is a shared entrance where you come in from one location on Route 60. Because I'm sure the parcel in between his parcel and Sheets, that parcel is going to develop. So I don't want to see you're talking about right now a waiver to VDOT minimum standards. We don't have anymore our enhanced standards in the county. They're gone. Only thing we have right now is VDOT, and now y'all are considering a waiver to your minimum standards. So whatever we do on this parcel, I want to make sure that we are looking at that whole section in terms of access management and how we develop. It's very important. I can see my new plan director, he's on the same page. Because he knows what can happen. If we do this with blinders on one parcel at a time, we'll never make it. So that's the challenge tonight, Ms. Worley. What can you help us with?
So I can confirm it doesn't meet our access management standards currently.
Right.
Because it's not 495 feet, which is
Nope.
our requirement for a right in, right out. So it would require an access management exception. We have made the comment that we would require a shared easement to the vacant parcel to the east, which I believe was shown in the site plan in the packet, but I don't know that I've seen the recorded easement yet. And a turn lane warrant was also provided to us, as you mentioned, was not in your packet yet, but it does meet our turn lane requirements. So we would require a full taper and turn lane into the
Going
site.
in for right in?
Correct. And
And
it would
what
have
about
to
the right
connect to
out
the
joining with
existing.
the turn lane that exists with Mr. Bubbles or?
Right, it would have to connect to the existing turn
All right, so
lane.
we've got two conditions. We would have to do a turn lane coming in, a full turn lane.
Yes, with full
Okay,
width
does he
turn
have
lane
the
and
property
taper.
in the front to do a full turn lane? Okay, so he's got enough space. But Rebecca, Ms. Worley, what I'm concerned about is where is the shared entrance off of 60 for that next parcel to the east? How will that work when they come in and they develop? How will they get into their property? Will they go through the interparcel access up to the north? Is that the way that they will have to develop their property?
They wouldn't meet access management standards to connect at Route 60. So
So they're being limited. Whoever, there's no land agreement right now between the parcel next door to the east and this parcel. So they're dictating what the next parcel is going to be doing for access management. So they're basically saying, whatever you develop, you're going to have to come into my property, go through parking spaces on both sides, and then take a right turn to get to your development.
unless an access management exception was granted for that next parcel as well, would be the other.
Okay.
But-
And when you do the access management exception, you don't need our support to do that. Y'all can do that yourselves.
That is correct, we can.
Okay. Under what conditions would you grant an exception?
We would require a review of the site plan and trip generation and
Okay.
turn lane warrants.
And
as
you would
well.
be looking at traffic today, which I believe is the average daily traffic is 26,000, correct?
Around there.
Okay. So you wouldn't be looking for future traffic. You'd just be looking at traffic today.
Mhm.
Like I said,
Yeah.
I'm sure the other board members are like me. We're very parochial about
Right.
Route 60 and access management. We only get one bite of the apple and we have to get it right. Because going back and fixing it really doesn't work. It just doesn't happen. So having said all this, you're proffering a right turn,
Right in, right out.
right in, right out, and you will be connecting to,
Westbound traffic.
okay, so you'll have that continuation.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Cirillo, do you have any?
Yeah, I do have a question.
I want you to weigh in.
Would you be willing to proffer that you would be willing to have a dedicated access? I'm not sure how we write it, but so in other words, because you're absolutely right. You're offering the opportunity to give the adjacent parcel between you and Sheets the opportunity to develop, which it's going to, right? So, but right now, there's no access easement between you or Sheets and that parcel.
Mhm.
So I think that because we didn't get one from Sheets originally, that parcel is isolated. It could potentially not be developed because they have no agreement with either parcel. It's not, he doesn't have to grant them access through his property. So I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be proactive to get something on the books that was an access easement agreement.
Well,
for-
that's
Yeah.
normally what happens. There is an agreement.
But to do it proactively as opposed to waiting for that parcel to develop, like getting
Yeah.
something on the books now.
I agree. I know instances where it was done down at 288 and 711.
Right.
That seems to make a lot of sense.
So it would be another easement that you would be granting. It's just, it's
through the
access,
site on the interconnected
right? And the
basis.
language could be written in such a way that, and what we could do is proffer it to be done at the time of site plan submittal.
The way that we actually laid out our site plan, our curb cut on the eastern side of it, that
Huh.
would connect to the parcel next to us, is pretty much in line where the curb cut is on Sheets.
Yeah.
So we were hoping to connect through when that parcel is developed.
Well, I'm going to defer to my two experts, to Mike and to Ms. Worley. What do we need to do tonight to make sure that we have in place what we need going forward to have public safety and good access management on Road 60? Because if you don't have good access management, you're not going to get a good economic development. It doesn't happen.
It gets expensive to fix these problems.
Yeah, so whatever, are you comfortable tonight going forward with the understanding of what's going to happen going forward?
Well, I think at this stage, I mean, frankly, my bailiwick is transportation. I was an RPO director at one time. So, I mean, I see how if you mess up a transportation network, you basically cut off your legs. I mean, you can't go anywhere. And it's not an easy fix or inexpensive either. So these are things that we absolutely know, we share this knowledge. But I think that if at this point, if we could just have the proper agreement to offer that access easement to adjacent parcels through his driveway entrance, I think that would go a long way initially, at least it's not the solution I would like to see a long term, but it is a solution in this case.
Is that something that can be done with the crafting of a proffer tonight? Or is that something we need to come back after consultation with the county attorney?
Well, it's going to be best if we craft the proffer and applicant has time to review it, and if he's got counsel, have his counsel review it. So I mean, it would be better to do this, not try and rush it.
Well,
Yeah.
we know the rule. Anytime you do it up on stage, you run the risk of not getting it right. Are you comfortable with where we're headed?
Yeah, very.
Okay. Well, we just want to get it right, just like you're planning for the future. And we want you to grow and prosper. Trust me. We just want to make sure that when you grow and prosper, we have good access management to support your business here in the county, as well as your neighbors.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can stay up there. I'm gonna have a question. So we're talking about the east side and that vacant property there. When you go to the west side and you have your access there, is there any type of an agreement with the
So
property owner to the west?
that's correct. There's no current agreement with property owner to the west, whether it be the tractor dealer or the car wash. Neither of them, when they submitted site plans and those were approved, provided a curb cut or a survey that would provide us an easement access to their property. I actually had spoken with Sarah about this right before she left. She said she was going to look at the tax records and their site survey plans from previous submittals. But she also encouraged me to proactively put that curb cut there and negotiate with them directly for an easement into their property.
Negotiate with them. I know where you're coming from there, and you're going to put this access in there and they don't have to do anything
Yes, correct.
to the western side. The that was the one thing, I mean, the east side of it, I get that part and how we're gonna hopefully have an access agreement as it comes over from the property at Sheets
Yep.
all the way through.
Yep.
And that doesn't exist. I think Mr. Cirillo is probably correct.
I just want to add to that, though. I think when I looked at it, I looked at the alignment of what will become a future access parallel road. So the alignment works with the parcel to the west.
Yeah.
My expectation is that that connection will be made when that parcel changes use or goes to some other use, that connection would be made at that time. But I think that this agreement, this access agreement, public access agreement to be able to use that driveway, I think that's going to help get us there.
Okay, good. Works by me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Williams. Does anyone else have any questions, comments?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. McClung.
There's a house on that property right now,
That's
correct?
correct.
So I'm thinking about the same piece. Okay,
Mhm.
the house will be gone.
House will be gone, septic system will be filled in.
Right.
The well, Public Utilities said that we need to make sure and get it certified that it's capped, which I believe it already is, because that house actually is already on city water or Powhatan water. As long as we are going to be required to hook into sewer, which we have planned for.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You want it, Mr. McClung?
So the actual turn lane is going to go from this entrance and connect to the west property turn lane or turn lane that goes up into those two businesses there, correct? How long is this turn lane going to be?
Our minimum is a 100-foot taper and then a 100-foot length.
100-foot taper and
Mhm.
100-foot lane. And there's enough property, road frontage here. You're not going to need any agreement with anybody else. Right? That's not for Rebecca. This is,
I'll tell you in a quick second. No,
beg your pardon?
I would say no, based on the aerial map that I'm looking at. There's probably 400 or 500 feet between those two driveways.
Okay. So he's got sufficient room then?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Mr. Barley? We're
Yes,
going to have
Mr.
to
Cox.
defer this to get this done, and they can actually measure it for you and
Get you the
confirm
exact precise thing.
Yep. Because it's a good question. We need to know.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Williams?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to refer case 23-07-REZ to our next regularly scheduled board meeting.
I'll second.
August 22nd. Sound right, Mr. Chardon? August 22nd.
That's why I said regularly scheduled,
Yeah.
because I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
I'm pretty sure it's the
I've
22nd.
I've got the 28th.
28 for August?
That would be the
Oh, I'm sorry.
Monday.
Yep, you're right. It is the 28th. Okay, so August 28th, the next regular scheduled board meeting. The motion to defer has been seconded. Roll call vote, Mr. Chardon.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. McClung,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
Mrs. Carmack,
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye.
Next public hearing this evening, ordinance 2023-09, rezoning proffer amendment 23-06 Avery, requesting to change a previously approved rezoning cases cash proffer where there was a stipulation to increase based on the CPI Consumer Price Index.
Okay. Mr. Cirillo?
Okay, their language specifically is that they wanted to amend proffer number 3 of the original rezoning case. The original proffer stated that they would be willing to proffer $12,462 per dwelling unit. The amount approved by the Board of Supervisors not to exceed $12,462 per dwelling unit, adjusted upward by any increase in the consumer price index between 2007 and July 1st of the fiscal year in which the payment is made, if paid after June 30th of 2008. So what they'd like to do is to change the language to read $12,462 per dwelling unit with no upward increase or upward index adjustment.
We will open the floor up for the public hearing. Anyone from the public would like to speak? Do you have anyone online?
No, sir.
Good evening.
Oh,
Thank
no.
you for considering this tonight. I'm Ray Avery, the applicant, and happy to answer any questions or try to that you may have.
Okay. Thank you, sir. No one online, no one coming down. We'll close the public hearing. And board,
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman,
could I ask a technical question to our county attorney?
sure, go ahead, Mr. Cox.
Would you go to page 203? Okay. We have a split zone parcel. We don't allow that, do we?
We don't currently allow split zoning. I don't know when this happened.
I mean, this is split zone parcel. Look at, Ms. Carmack, you look at the big piece, okay, the gray is R5. And so the biggest parcel has both A10 as well as R5.
but wasn't it all rezoned to?
No, a portion of this, okay, this split zone,
Okay,
okay, which just raises the question. This is 2008, 15 years ago. I don't know what the rules were then. Do we have any problems with the rezoning because of this?
No, because all this is a proffer amendment request.
Okay,
Yeah,
but does this bring into question the rezoning?
No, I don't think so. It doesn't affect the underlying rezoning. Technically, a proffer is part of your zoning, but the only thing that they're requesting an amendment on is the proffer. The underlying zoning is in place.
The thing that I would ask the board to think about, one of the options, of course, is a conservation subdivision, which they can do by right. And this shows you that they have a lot more property that they can use than just the R5 piece, because all of this could be in a conservation subdivision. So it's more than just what they have a proffer for. This is 15 years ago. The rules have changed. Asking a proffer reduction of roughly $5,000. The old option is more expensive for them, but they knew that. They sat there for 15 years and watched it go up. Okay. The new option, the conservation subdivision, which is a by right, has no cash proffers at all. And if they go to, or just consider going to a conservation subdivision, they have much more property that they can use than just the R5. So they have a larger piece of property that they could consider. Planning Commission was 5-0 no on this. I have a perfect track record over time of not altering proffers. I've never done that. We watched a prior board. Jim Carver kept all the records and they gave away $3 million. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I give you all a chance to weigh in.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Yes, Ms. Carmack.
a quick question on the second portion of this request. Mr. Chardon or Mr. Cirillo, can you, what do they mean in the event the cash payment is not used for which proffered within 7 years of the receipt, the cash shall be returned in full to the payer? Can you explain that?
I'm going to claim I'm a North Carolinian and I don't know yet.
Okay, I don't.
It's still new.
That-
so
I
I'm not
don't
sure.
like that.
But, yeah, Fred can answer.
That's not normal.
Yeah.
In fact, normally under state law, it either allowed to be used for some other similar project or it actually goes to the state. It doesn't normally go back to the applicant.
Okay. Okay. So striking that would not be,
So that would be appropriate.
okay, okay, thank you. Second, Mr. Cox, I concur. You and I were unilaterally lockstep in voting against every one of the proffer reductions. In this circumstance, I discussed with the applicant at length. He certainly wanted to go to the 1880 and had, I forgot the exact scenario, but long story short, the gentleman who the applicant lived out of town and didn't get a copy of the Powhatan today. And I kind of replied, that wasn't my problem. So I haven't seen a lot of the consumer index increases. So I told him I would be comfortable doing keeping it at the original proffered amount of 12,400 or whatever the amount was. But I certainly could not go down to the 1880 that cost, the citizens millions of dollars. Conversely, they have over the past 15 years been paying slightly higher taxes on the development being RR5 versus A10. The amount isn't substantial. I emailed Mr. Timberlake today, and I mean, it's marginal, but nonetheless a little bit more than A10. So I felt a little more reassured that they've been paying more in taxes over the past 15 years on that property. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Cox.
One other thing I've failed to mention is our comprehensive plan does not support this type of development anymore. Okay, and so if we so we've said as board that conservation subdivision is the only way to go, not R5. So if in fact you reduce the proffer, you are endorsing a different direction than what the comprehensive plan says. That gives me some concern. So, for what it's worth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, this is District 5, Ms. Carmack.
I move we approve 2306 REZ as amended with striking number 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion is to approve 23-06 REZ, striking number 2, which is in the event the cash payment is not used for which proffered within 7 years of the receipt, the cash shall be returned in full to the payer. You do a roll call vote.
I think we need to, since it's technically a voluntary proffer,
That's
striking a part 2, I think requires the assent of the applicant that he agrees to that.
You okay with that, Mr. Avery?
Yes, that was what, that language was in the original zoning phase. So that key part was just a carryover from the original proffer statement from 7.
Okay.
And we certainly.
All right. We'll need to do a roll call vote on this.
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, we're reducing the cash proffer from $17,186 to $12,462 per parcel or per
Parcel. Yep, correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, do we know how many parcels there are?
I don't know how many parcels there are.
I'd like to know how many times 5,000 we're giving away.
34 from the conceptual plan. Due to regulations, that's like
Ballpark was all I need. Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you.
To answer the split zoning question, I pulled up the original rezoning case. You are correct that it's currently split zoned, though conceptual plan is laid out. Once those lots are developed, it'll be a separate parcel for the A10 portion. So the ultimate form of the property would no longer be split zoned.
Say that again?
So the property was rezoned, but only a portion of it is going to have the homes on it. So once those are developed and subdivided, the portion that's A10 will be separate of those. So it'll be one A10 lot, not split zone.
So we're doing a lot line adjustment, basically.
No, basically, once it's built, the lots are the R5 and what's
Gotcha.
left.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
He states it's the A10. Right. Okay, Brett.
Mr. Williams,
No.
Mr. McClung,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
No.
Mrs. Carmack,
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye.
And then the last item we have the advertised public hearing for ordinance 2023-10, 2304 REZC Powhatan Fair rezoning. We had advertised this after the planning commission, I think when our planning director was maybe in this first week or so. But since then, we've had a good meeting with the applicant to start working on primarily what was missing from the application to move forward, which was a transportation study and that. So we're recommending deferral tonight to allow us and the applicant to continue to work on that as well as some of the other questions, and then bring it back before you for a re-advertised public hearing when it's ready.
Okay, will we need to make a motion to defer that, Mr. Latchney?
Well, you adopted this agenda and it showed it is deferred on your adopted agenda.
It
So
did. It
Mr.
did.
Chardon was just providing information.
So we're okay with that?
We're good.
Okay, good. Proceeding right along, we will begin our second comment period, public comment period. And people speaking before the board may not be vulgar, rude, or use profane language. The public may speak on any issue that is germane to county business. The public comment period shall not include criticism of specific individuals or attacks on any person or group. No political campaigning or promoting of a business is permitted. The floor is now open. Is anyone online?
No, sir.
Public comment period is closed. County attorney comments?
No comments, Mr. Chair.
County administrator comments?
Again, due to work on this building, the August and September regular meetings and workshop will be in the Powhatan Landmark Center.
Board comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cox.
In case anyone has not seen it, last Monday, July 17th, there was a wonderful article, lead article above the fold on the village of Powhatan and how it's evolving, but keeping preservation as part of it. It's a glowing picture of what is going on. It shows the ambiance that we hoped would be there. And it also shows how we are attracting new businesses and how they're growing. So I would encourage you to take a look at it. This is a real feel-good story. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr.
I got one comment. Last Tuesday morning, I was privileged to attend a community matters event at the PLC building. They had a story time, Powhatan story time session, lasted 2 hours. It was different citizens of the county telling their Powhatan stories. Just let y'all know that I did sign up to tell my Powhatan story at their next story time event. So just letting y'all know that. Thank you.
Be sure to attend, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Wade?
Can we tell stories about other people? Okay.
And me, I'll make mine very brief and short. At the last meeting we had, I was asking Ms. Schubert, our finance director, a question about how much money does the county have in an unassigned fund balance, and kind of got a rough figure. And after that meeting, she was very kind, and the next day, I think, sent me the information to give you a little update on that. The estimated fund balance for June the 30th, 2023, $25,788,465. Also, the capital maintenance reserve fund, as of that same estimated June 30th, $9,763,932. To let you know what's in the bank. We're adjourned.
I had a closed session, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, we got to go to close session.
So
Hold it. We got to go. We got to regavel. We'll come back out to it.
Eddie, I have a brief closed
We
session.
gotta
I'm
go
sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Closed session. I apologize.
No
My
worries.
error.
Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following matters. Consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body concerning a property on Huguenot Trail and on Hancock Road. And whereas pursuant to section 2.23711A7 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County does hereby authorize discussion of forestate matters in closed meeting. Need that as a motion.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? We're going into closed session. It'll be
So let me know when you're ready.
Passing that one up.
Are we good to go, Katie? We ready? All right, members of the board were the only matters discussed in the closed session, public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and then only such matters as were disclosed in the motion by which the closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session. Need a roll call.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. McClung.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
aye.